Welcome to ViviTalks. I'm Vivienne Aerts. Join me in celebrating 100 talented female musicians from my last album, Typuhthâng, empowering female cacao farmers in Congo's Virunga State Park and restoring the rainforest. Delve into the musical journeys, creative processes, and unique perspectives of these talented women that were involved in the making of this album. Inés Velasco is a composer, arranger, producer, and drummer born in Guadalajara, Mexico. She graduated Magna Cum Laude at Berklee College of Music with a dual degree in jazz composition and performance. She has written, arranged, and orchestrated for artists such as the Metropole Orkest, the New York Philharmonic, Alina Engirbayan, and José Mercé. Listen to our conversation about all her upcoming projects, her passions, and her way to find her inspiration. So welcome, Inés, to my official podcast, ViviTalks. I'm so excited to have you. We've known each other for a long time, since Berklee, I guess.
10 years.
And 10 years. Crazy.
What?
And
We're
you
aging
did
ourselves.
the arrangement of the beautiful song Silence on the album, which I'm super excited and thankful about. But first, let me ask you, me and the audience love to learn a little bit more about your background. Who are you? What do you do? Where you're from? Give me the wrap.
Sure. Well, I am originally from Guadalajara, Mexico. I grew up there in a very, I guess, artistically oriented family. My mom is, I don't know, she does lots of things. Writes and takes photos and used to work with artists. And my dad, he's an engineer, but really a musician at heart. So I kind of like grew up with tons of poets and sculptors and songwriters around like all the time, so it was a cool household to grow up in, and tough to sleep at night. They used to party a lot and have jam sessions that would go on and on. No, but it was honestly, it was very cool. And then I started to play piano when I was a kid. I had Russian teachers. And I think I always enjoyed music, but I didn't really enjoy I think I was too young to appreciate the structure and like the rigidness of my teachers at the time. So I was like a bit, you know, underwhelmed by it. And my parents, being like so into music, they were like, well, the last thing that we want to do is like for her to like not want to do it anymore. So pulled me out. And then when I was 12, I I wanted to do everything that my brother was doing, and he was playing guitar and listening to metal, and I was like listening to metal, you know. So then I started to take drum lessons when I was 12. It was a summer, and my mom was like, "You got to find something to do." So I opened the paper and I saw this ad for, drums, and I was like, "Yes!" I like weirdly enough I remember I had a dream like the night before of like me playing with like two double bass drums, like, you know, for like a stadium or something ridiculous like that. And I was like, that's gonna be me. Famous last words. And then I started to take like rock drum lessons when I was like, 12, 13. Had such a good time, played in a few bands, and then I discovered jazz through Bill Evans, actually. My dad brought home a record, Bill Evans' Finest Hour, and it just like, man, it blew my head open completely. I was like, I don't know what this is, but this is pretty amazing. And back then I was 16, I think, and there wasn't a lot of there started to be a little bit more awareness of jazz in the city, or at least from my perspective, as a young person. Like there weren't like really like too many jazz clubs. There had been one like in the 70s and 80s, but I really had to like dig and like to find stuff to listen to, and like when you don't know what you don't know, right? And I like truly knew nothing, but I knew that I wanted to find out more. So I slowly started to find more records, and I started to take lessons, drum lessons, with this jazz drummer. His name was Javier, and yeah, he was wonderful. He introduced me to a lot of things, and that was sort of like my inception to jazz drumming, you know. And then yeah, I went to a jazz cycle. I don't know how else to call it. This like course that this guy from Guadalajara that had gone to Berklee came back, and he wanted to like bring back some of his knowledge, and he invited some teachers. So I went to that, met some really good friends. I actually met my really, really good friend Lou, who ended up going to Berklee, who is now the head engineer in Sony Mexico, which is just like crazy, you know. But I met her there. That was a really fun experience. That led me to go to a jazz festival in Jalapa in the East Coast. I went there for like 2 or 3 years in a row, and there I met Berklee professors, Oscar Stañaro and Victor Mendoza, who's from Mexico, and they both were like, you should apply, you should come to Berklee. So I did, and then I went to Berklee. So yeah, I don't know. That's kind of probably a longer answer than you expected, but that's yeah, I guess it's the background.
Then the big question is, do you still play drums?
No, I don't, and I really miss it. I tried to play drums probably like 3 months ago, and I was like, wow, my time was like this, you know?
No.
Oh yeah, yeah, no
Cannot
doubt
believe
about it.
it.
Oh yes, yes, yes. No, it's okay. I know where I'm at. I think I know where I'm at. I just don't have enough time. I want to get better at writing first, and then if I had more time in my day, I would definitely play drums, because I think I miss the connection with the instrument and the physicality of it. I think it was such a big part of my life for such a long time. You know, I mean, I shed the drums for like hours every day. I was like really so invested in it, you know, before Berklee and during Berklee. And yeah, it's kind of crazy that it's like
So what
no
happened?
longer. Well, I found writing. I When I started Berklee, I thought I was just going to play drums, and then, you know, seeing the level of a lot of people that come internationally was both incredibly stimulating, but also I felt like, okay, wow, the level is really, really high, you know. I guess it was sobering, you know, and but in a good way. And I thought like, well, maybe if I'm here, I figured that I could study two careers. So I was like, well, I do want to do performance, because like this is what I kind of came here to do, and it's fun. But then I was in between studying CWP, I remember, jazz composition, and I just chose jazz composition kind of, I don't want to say on a whim, but I was like, well, I love jazz, but I had never written anything. So I was like, well, if I'm gonna write, I prefer to like learn how to write jazz rather than like commercial music. That was my logic at the time. So I remember, yeah, I was like, okay, cool, then I'll apply for jazz composition. And it was really funny because I went to apply for the major, and the chair back then, he was like, oh, what's your instrument? And I said, oh, drums. He was like, don't worry, you're gonna be fine. Like our you know, the guy that founded the jazz department was a drummer. And I'm like, I'm not worried. I was like, I'm fine. I'm actually like, I love harmony. Like I love all my theory lessons, you know. So it was like you know, there's this cliche, right, that like drummers are, a lot of drummers also are like not, you know, they just care about the instrument. They don't care about much else. And it's like, and then yeah, I started the major, and I really liked it. And people started to ask me to write more than they were asking me to play, even though I had written for a very short amount of time. So I was like, okay, interesting. And I think I just kind of rode the wave, you know. I felt actually that it suits my personality better. I don't feel super comfortable in the limelight. So, and I kind of like to do things kind of in the back, and, you know, uh, just work on little things on my own, and then, you know, present. Of course, like I love the social and the, you know, performance aspect in a way, and like getting together. Like that's what music is about, right? Like coming together with people and like sharing it and crafting it and workshopping it. But I think that the performing aspect for me as a drummer started to become uh yeah, a bit daunting, So I think writing came at the right time. And yeah, I just started to write a lot more. And then I injured my arms actually as well in my last year at Berklee. So I started to go to physical therapy and they were like, yo, you have to stop playing drums for like a while. So I was like, okay, cool. So I mean, no, not cool. I was bummed, but I feel like that accentuated more the path of, all right, well, I'm gonna write more, I guess. So yeah, that's I guess how I started writing it. It wasn't something that I thought I would do initially, but I'm grateful I found it. Yeah.
And you did some amazing projects. One of the earlier projects might have been the one with the Metropole Orchestra, right?
Yeah, that
Can you
was,
tell me
man,
about that?
that was so crazy. I feel like stuff happens to me, for me. I don't know, when I'm kind of apply for things and I'm just like, whatever, I don't think anything of it, and that's what happened with the Metropole. I saw that they had this arrangers workshop and led by Vince Mendoza, who was like by far like my musical hero, and I was like, oh my God, how amazing would it be? And I had just recorded just for myself these arrangements that I had written. One was an arrangement from this Uruguayan singer-songwriter Jorge Drexler and something else. So I had kind of like fresh things actually at that point. So I was like, okay, cool. Well, let me send them. And I just kind of sent them and forgot about it. And then I got the email like, oh, cool, you're invited. And I just like, I was like pinching myself, It's like, I couldn't believe it. So that was so cool. And that was like such a wonderful experience, to get to go with, it was 7 of us. Yeah, 7 of us in total, arrangers from like all over the world, just to go there to work with the Metropole for a full week, to write an arrangement during that week. And we prepared an arrangement for a concert with Gregory Porter at the end of the week, which was like super fun. So yeah, definitely a highlight for me. That was a really big surprise to get in. And yeah, I think I tried to make the most of it. So I have very fun memories. And I got to see you
Yeah, we
and
happened to
Teddy.
accidentally be there on a, I don't know, tour or visit, and we were
Yeah.
like, oh, we're there at the same time. Let's come. Yeah, we
Yeah.
came to see the show even. That
You
was so
took me on
funny.
oh yeah, that's right. That's right. I can see the
Yeah.
show, so nice. And then you took me and my buddy on a food tour.
Oh yeah, didn't we eat like stroop waffles and herring?
We
Yeah.
ate herring. We ate herring, and I couldn't like muster that, so I asked for it to be chopped in pieces, and the guy looked at me like,
Well, it's fine.
no.
It's fine. They do that all the time. Yeah.
I know, right? For tourists like me.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Tell me about some
a
of
lot of
the
fun.
other cool projects that you've been involved with over the years.
Um, sure. What else have I been involved with? Well, I used to work with a Spanish producer, and I got to do some arrangements with him that I kind of forgot about. And then as I was rebuilding my website, I was like, oh yeah, these were kind of cool. We did a couple of arrangements for string arrangements. For some reason, I've done a fair amount of string things, even though like I don't really feel like I know how to write for strings, but for some reason it's become a thing. But I'll take it, I'll take any opportunity to like write and learn. So we did a couple of arrangements for this really beautiful project that the Spanish newspaper El País was putting together, honoring Lorca, whom I love, and he's like such an important, writer and intellectual. So that was really cool because I had the flamenco voices of a couple of like really amazing Spanish singers, and I got to like write for them. That was a lot of fun to do. I wrote another string arrangement for this wonderful Russian vocalist, Alina Engirbayan, for the Ground Up label for her record called We Are. That was a couple of years ago. That was fun. I got to do this orchestral transcription for this metal band, going back full circle, called Avenged Sevenfold. This happened, I think, a year and a half ago. That was so fun. I got the call to do it, and I was like, "What?" I mean, it was like super chill, in the email. Was like, I did the work. I like, made everything was cool. And then at the very end, I was just like, I just dropped a note. I was like, this is a really big deal because I used to listen to you guys so much when I was in like high school, you know. So like my 16-year-old inner Inés is like very happy right now. So that was a lot of fun. I listened to the record and it's just like, you know, that was a lot of fun. So yeah, all to say, and of course, you know, your arrangement. I love to work with people. I really like to write my own music, but it's a very different process. But I really enjoy working with vocalists, you know, and to try to get immersed in other genres. So yeah, I welcome any opportunity to get out of my own head and do something for other folks. So yeah, try to serve that.
Awesome. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your creative process and how you approach writing and composing. Where do you start, right?
I know, right? Well, I write everything in paper. As you can see, it's not very effective, but I really think that the connection between like my hand and the keyboard is like a lot faster than using a computer. I know that's like so archaic and silly, but thus far that has been the way that I feel the most comfortable writing. Um, the process depends. I mean, when I'm arranging, I really try to listen to the music as much as I can. If it's something with lyrics, I really try to like dive into that and try to understand, uh, of course, what the meaning is, or at least what I think the meaning is, you know, of things, and try to mark points during the song of like highs and lows. Like try to like imagine what the arc is, right? Sometimes I'm given instrumentation, sometimes I'm not. So it depends on that. And then it's tough to say. I mean, sometimes melodies will come into my mind, sometimes counterpoint will come into my mind. I don't necessarily start at the beginning. I think that's very common. You know, like sometimes like I'll start to work on the bridge because like I'll work kind of like this, or I'll work in the end. I don't write with harmony in mind, actually. I write with a lot of I feel like I figure out the harmony afterwards. And it usually, I mean, it makes some kind of sense because like I'm so, you know, immersed in tonality, you know, that's all I listen to. So inevitably it'll make some kind of sense, even if it modulates. But yeah, I definitely don't write with like, okay, and then this is a C chord, and then I'm going to like a, you know, F7 chord. Like I don't think that way. I think I try to think more in terms of like connecting, like trying to think what's the longest thing that I can write and connect with, and try to bridge things in a way that is not so distinct almost. I love texture and I love layering. So I think those things. I think a lot about gravity, texture, and color. I think when I'm writing both my own stuff as well as arranging. And for arranging, I mean, I mean, the most important thing is that the song, whatever that is, that it shines the best that it can. You know, like it's really not about me. It's about how can I serve the music as best as I can with the tools that I have, you know, with my own like palette, I guess. Sometimes rhythm comes to me as a drummer, but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I feel like I make rhythmic exercises for myself, you know, of like how would this sound, you know, and like try to put it together. I'm like working on that something. I don't know what it'll turn out now, and it's transcribed to Avishai Cohen, and it's just so cool. And like try to, you know, take some of that into that. You need input. You need input for output. So yeah, I don't know. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think that's great. Gravity, balance. Yeah, that's very powerful. Because sometimes, but then what do you do if you don't know where to start? Do you have, or do you scribble if you're walking on the street, or do you have a
I've never
notepad
done
or?
that. No, I've never, honestly, I've never done that. I know that a lot of people are like, oh, I come up with something on the street. I'm just like, yo, I never come up with anything on the street.
You
I
just
wish
sit
I,
behind the piano and that's where
yeah,
you do it. Yeah.
yeah, that's what I do it, either, yeah. I don't know. I wish things came to me, maybe a couple of times, but like, I feel like I really just need to like sit down, get in the mood, listen to a lot of it. I try to carve out space and time when I'm writing, which is not so easy. Part of why writing is challenging for me, because like doing it in like small chunks feels kind of disconnected in my brain sometimes. But um yeah, I just sit down and I just, sometimes you have to be patient. You have to be patient, you have to, sometimes things will come kind of quickly. And if there's an idea, you have to follow it as far as you can, whether that takes you half an hour, if it takes you 3 hours, like you just have to follow it. But there's tools too, like, okay, cool, well, the melody's doing this, like, all right, if like I really don't know where to start, then I really try to uh bring the tools, that's why I went to school for, right? Like listen to the melody, try to come up with a counter melody, or like, okay, listen to what the bass is doing, like what structures can I build on top of that. Like I tried to be very technical if like things don't kind of come in a more natural way, at times. So there's a time for kind of like sparkles, and there's a time for, tools and technicality.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear a little bit about your approach in the arrangement of the album Silence.
Right. Well, I mean, the song to me almost felt like an old standard, which I loved. Like the melody is so pretty, and it had so much space, which was a challenge. Um, you asked me to write for string quartet, which, as I said, I don't really feel like I know how to do, but I do my best. And it's such a different thing to write for strings than to write for horns, right? Because they don't need to breathe. I mean, they do, but like they don't need to breathe to play their instrument. So there's a lot more that you can do with like lines and things. I think I tried to not so much think about harmony, but like really, because it felt to me like a standard, like to try to think more of those kinds of changes, and like that kind of like a more traditional, so to speak, harmony, and try to like weave in and out of your voice and create moments, right? I knew that also you wanted to have, flugel in there, so to try to create like a frame for the flugel to hopefully do her thing as best as she of course did a wonderful job. And I remember thinking a lot about the bass and like how specific I wanted to be with the bass, because sometimes, you have something that isn't a certain frequency, right? And then you get used to it, and then like a bass comes in and you're like, oh, cool. So I kind of wanted that element in there. I knew that from the get-go, since I started to listen to your song. But yeah, more than anything, I just wanted to, I guess, emphasize and mirror both the lyrics and your pacing, with the strings. That's what I was thinking a lot about your pacing, about the lyrics, about what it meant, silence, um, that sort of like vastness, and try to like recreate that using strings. So yeah, definitely your lyrics provided a lot of inspiration, as as lyrics do. So I had a lot of fun, and I remember I gave you the arrangement, and you were like, write more. And I was like, okay. So I think I wrote like a bigger intro and a bigger outro. Because like it's not about me. Like if you're asking whoever's asking me to arrange, like I'm not trying to be like, "Oh, check me out." I'm trying to be like, no, check the song out. So, but anyway, that was nice. That was lovely. Yeah, I had a lot of fun doing it. Challenging though, to like do it in the middle of COVID, and to not be in the room with the players as they were playing it, because I would have made different choices articulation wise for sure. If I had the chance to do that, but that's what happens. It's yeah, not being in the room has its challenges, but that's also part of letting go, right? You write it and you're
Yeah.
like, let's see, it's not mine anymore, it's yours.
Well, I think this way also we got a lot of freedom with the mixing later on. We put some
Yeah,
digital effects.
yeah, you did, yeah.
which I think made it like something else.
Mhm.
Yeah, I thought it was really, really hip.
Yeah,
These
you did
days.
some really cool stuff with it. Yeah, it's such an interesting record. It blends so many things and so many influences, and I think you were able to do
Yeah.
it quite beautifully.
So tell me then about your COVID project, which is called the 3 Stories, right?
Yeah,
You did that remotely too.
I did that remotely too, and I think for it being remote and it being big band, I think we got something really cool. Just speaking like about the actual, sound of it. It doesn't, to me, it doesn't sound like people are not in the same room. Um, yeah, it was a project that I felt like I needed to do at the time because I had these three pieces and they were really starting to feel like old clothes, you know? So I was like, yo, I need to either like get them out the door or I'll never get them out the door, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, the three pieces are for three people in my life. So for Lene, for my youngest niece who plays piano, so I wrote that for her. And I wrote Kids Play for my nephew, who is just, a wild old thing. He's wonderful. So I wrote those two for them. I mean, they're growing up very quickly, and I don't get to see them often. So it was very important for me to be like, I love you. I'm thinking of you. Here's a little thing. And then the other piece I guess it's dedicated to Jacob because we gave each other a writing prompt during COVID, and the third piece came out of that prompt. I wrote it for him for his, I think it was like a trio or a quintet. And then I was like, you know what, let me try to turn it into a big band thing. And so I did, and that was the thing. It was sweet that it got included in the summer edition of Jazzes for Big Sounds. That was very lucky. Totally unexpected, but I'll take it. So that was cool to put together. And yeah, we had to like layer it. I asked for help from Andy Farber from BMI. I was like, how do I start? I thought I would actually start with the drums, and he was like, no, drums last. So he like gave me the order of things and like how to do stuff, and obviously give click to people and like ask them to do things in a certain way. And he gave me such valuable advice to do this project. So I'm very grateful to him, and and to everybody that just like recorded at home, and then like I edited as best as I could, and that was that. It's out. What can I say? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
it's three
really love
stories.
how it came out. It's really amazing. People should check it out. I'll put it in the descriptions of the
No,
thing.
thanks.
And then let's start talking about what's coming up because you've been working hard on a
Um,
new project, huh?
Yeah, so I am releasing, I don't know when, maybe this year or beginning of the next one. My first full-length big band album is called A Flash of Cobalt Blue. It's inspired by the poetry of Mexican writer Jorge Esquinca, who has become a really good friend as well. He's a family friend, actually. His niece, Mariana, and I are like sisters. We grew up together. So I always knew who he was, but I've been thinking about this project for over 10 years, as in thinking about his book for over 10 years. I attended the reading of it. It's a very small book. It takes maybe like to read to an hour. Totally serendipitous. I was at Berklee and I went back home for one break, and my parents were like, "Oh, well, we're gonna go and see Jorge. He's just published a book. We're gonna go see his reading." I was like, "Okay, cool." And I heard it, and I was like, this is great. This is like so amazing and beautiful and powerful. And actually 10 years ago, after I came back from the Metropole, I was like so inspired. I was like, okay, cool. I need to do something with this. So we had a long chat about the book, about the structure, about some similarities, between how he writes and rhythm, and how he was taking structures that were already, like predetermined structures, and how he was like breaking them specifically to like mimic what he was trying to say. about the death of his own father, and like it was such a cool conversation. I came out totally inspired. But it's been sort of 10 years kind of like rattling, in my brain. I've come up with like a few things here and there for a grandiose moment. I thought I was going to do it for orchestra. Of course, it did not pan out, you know. And then, yeah, I think about a year ago, I was like, all right, it's time. And now I'm thinking about it. Let's nose to the grindstone. And yeah, I just set myself a deadline and just finished it, assembled a band before finishing it. So that definitely was like, all right, well, I gotta do it, everybody's committed. So that's what I had to do. And yeah, I assembled the band. The band is like stellar, just such amazing musicians. I was so lucky. Um, and we recorded it in May. Oh, and actually, I got Jorge, the author, to record his own voice. I asked him kind of shyly if he would record maybe just a few of the poems, that actually had served as inspiration for the book. And he went to the studio in Guadalajara and he just like recorded the whole thing. He was like, you never know, you may use something else. And actually, I ended up using other bits and pieces that I hadn't thought of originally. So he has such a beautiful speaking voice, even though it's funny, he like can't stand to hear his own voice. And I'm like, your voice is amazing. And everybody that has listened to it, they're like, who's reading this? And I'm like, I know, it's him. So it's yeah, listening back. I mean, I'm in the mixing process right now, finishing mixes, going into mastering hopefully in the next couple of weeks. I'm working on the art with another friend of mine who's from Mexico, wonderful photographer who knows what the book is about and is like coming up with like these really cool images of blue and like, anyway. So I'm excited about it. It's yeah, it's been a minute thinking about it, and we recorded it in 2 days. It was 2 very, relaxed days. Everybody was just the hang at the studio, I think was great fun. I think people had a lot of fun. I had a great producer, Rafael Picoloto de Lima, wonderful peer who just like was so invaluable, in making this happen. So yeah, I'm looking forward to releasing it. It's a little nerve-wracking. I go back and forth. I don't listen to it a lot, but like the couple of times that I've listened to it for, to give notes, I go back and forth, about it. You know how it is. But yeah, it's a timestamp, right? I have to remind myself. It's just the timestamp. It's what I could do at the time. And you just release it. Then next,
Yeah. Get the word out. Yeah.
Get the word out. Yeah. So yeah, I'm excited about that. But
Exciting.
yeah, definitely starting to to write some new things. It's time to,
Yeah.
get my head out of the summer, come back to the
Right.
grind. So
Yeah. So tell me, making a living as a writer is rough, right? It takes
well,
years to establish.
I think so. I mean, I'm definitely not the person to ask because I do not make my living out of writing. I would, I don't know that I could do it, number one. And I think that I would probably have to take gigs that I wouldn't be too excited about. And I want to be very careful with my relationship to music.
Mm,
In that way. I mean, there's a lot that goes into this, right? There's a confidence thing, obviously, that there's an ability thing. Those two for me are, yeah, they're intertwined. I think that I've been very fortunate to work in the arts. So I worked for a management agency. So every day, I get to help artists build something, in their careers, which is, I think, a really good position to be in. It gives me in the music industry, very specifically in the music industry. And I
and
get
you're
to work
good
with,
at.
I mean, I'm still there. I don't know. I really enjoy it. I really derive a lot of satisfaction from being able to help other people, I guess hopefully fulfill their dreams and like come up with cool projects, producing things, producing tours. All of that is very satisfying for me. It takes, of course, a lot of time and a lot of brain power, so then I'm not writing as much as I would want to, for sure. But for me, it felt too daunting. It felt too daunting to be like, yeah, okay, cool, I'm going to move to New York and I'm just going to be a writer. It's like, oof, I don't know a lot of people that do that. I was reading this interview with Charlie Rosen, who went to Berklee, I think around the same time that I did. And it was so cool. It was so inspiring to read, because he obviously comes from a very different background. He lived in New York when he was very young. Then he came back to Berklee, kind of like knowing exactly what he needed to learn, which is like such an amazing place to be in. And I think he's making his living from, I don't think just writing, but he's a Broadway cat. He's like playing. He's very well versed, in the technology side of it. So I think you have to be a bit of jack of all trades, a jack of many trades, these days. I mean, this as well, right? I feel like it's really tough to just do one thing. And especially for the kind of music that I feel inclined writing, it's like, yeah, good luck, having
Yeah.
a okay life just writing. So I was like, you know what? I'll combine it with something else. So
Oh, even,
yeah, I think it's tough.
getting a big band in the studio, pay them all, renting a studio, it's just an expense. You cannot just put a big band on stage. That's an expense too, right?
Yeah, of course. Like I want to make sure that, I mean, that's why I haven't done so many of these things too, because like I want to pay these folks. I don't want to I certainly can't and don't want to ever ask people to do stuff for free unless it's like under very special circumstances. But for this, it's like, no, man. But I that's why I did a fundraising campaign. I think last year when I was like, okay, cool, I'm gonna do this. I sat down and I built a budget, and I was like, right, okay, yeah, I need support. So I did a Kickstarter campaign, and thankfully it was successful, and I think that allowed me to make sure that everybody was taken care of and that there was like no stress, at least for the production part, of it, like the studio, getting everybody together. And like, fortunately, the organization part of it kind of comes naturally to me after doing it for other people for so long. It's like that part for me is easy, The tough part is to write stuff that I feel okay enough to do.
Right. Well, I'd love to hear a little bit about your crazy adventures as working as a booker or like international producer.
Yeah, well, when I first started, my boss sent me to China pretty quickly to produce a show at the Wall with Max Richter. He has this incredible project called Sleep, which is an 8-hour piece. So essentially, the concept is, people go in there. It runs from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. So 8 hours, and it's him with his piano, some strings, an incredible soprano. Her name is Grace Davidson. And yeah, it's just like the most gorgeous music you could hear, for 8 hours. And the cool thing is that there's like beds always, so like he's done it in LA, he's done it in Australia, he's done it in a bunch of places. And this time we were going to do it in China at the Great Wall. But, so my boss was like, go, do it. It's going to be great. I'm like, okay, cool. So I got to this like tiny town in the middle of nowhere, like nobody spoke English. I was like, oh my God. And then turns out that they were like, it's not going to be at the Wall. It's going to be at this hotel. And I'm like, what? So I had to like, convince everybody that we had to do it at this hotel, which was like totally not what we were there for. But everybody was in China already. Like, what are you going to do? Like everything was sold out. So, it's just one of those things where you just have to find the middle ground very quickly, and just make sure that everybody's on board and that the show must go on always, So that was fun. That was like probably like my first I guess like bigger assignment, I've worked for the last few years with this Japanese composers, and Mr. Hisaishi is very famous for doing the music of the Studio Ghibli films. So we've done lots of shows with him. I've produced some of them at Radio City. I produced 5 shows in 2022 and 3 shows at Madison Square Garden this past summer. So it's fun, you know, it's
And
kind of,
that's with orchestra, right? And the
yeah,
video in the back. So
yeah,
they play the video at the same time as the orchestra live is playing, right?
exactly. So it has, it's a bit different than a lot of the, you know, film and orchestra projects that are out right now, which I also work on some of those. But where it's just like, okay, it's just like the movie, right? And then there's conductor, but the movie is being played. In this case, it's a combination because he actually wrote some of the suites specifically for this format, for this concert, right? So it'll be like, oh, this is a suite of like this movie, right? So then it'll be a combination of like clips from the film intertwined with like live IMAG, what it's called, of the live orchestra. So it's a bit more of a challenging project to put on than just like a regular, like, put the movie, the orchestra plays it, you're done. Like Lord of the Rings, for example, that I also work with. So yeah, but it's been really fun, you know, like, again, one of those things where it's just like figure it out, you know, and just do it. And it's been a great learning experience, and it's been really lovely to see the connection, you know, that projects like these have with people, you know. And I just remember, you know, we were at Wembley in London, and I just see the people, and everybody you could hear a pin drop, you know, just like 12,000 people just there, just looking, and just people crying, and it's just like so beautiful. You're like, it's so nice to be a part of it, you know, to be like this, it's nice, it's lovely to be a part of this industry, you know. It's a lot of fun. So yeah, and
Nice.
everything in between, you know.
Yeah,
But
amazing.
yeah.
Change gears a little. I'd love
Yeah.
to hear a little bit about what advice you would give to young musicians who are just starting out their journey.
Oh boy, that's a big one. What kind of advice?
Or what would you have told your younger self, right? It's a similar.
I think I would have told myself to, well, hindsight is 2020, so it's a really tricky one. I think I'd have just told myself to like really dive into writing and to really dive into technology, because that's something that it's a skill that I don't really have, and that I feel like it could be so useful, you know, if I wanted to go more into like film or more commercial writing. I feel like now it's a big lift that I have like no time to do, you know, like maybe one day I'll do it, but I think I would advise folks to do that, to not stay too close about paths in general. You never know what doors are going to open. I never, like, if you had told me 10 years ago that I would be that going to China to produce concert, I'd be like, what? With what skill set? You know? But you learn on the go. You learn on the go. So sometimes I feel like you need to also, you know, you need to trust in yourself, you need to trust in your gut, but also people are mirrors, and sometimes you need to hear what people are saying about you, you know, and people that you actually value, and that you know that will give you sincere feedback. If people are like, man, you're really good at this, you should also pay attention, because you may not think that about yourself, but if multiple people say that, which has been my case for a couple of things, I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe, you know. And like I feel like that has also shaped my path, for better, for worse, however you want to look at it, you know. So I think both, you know, what doesn't bend will break, and that's something that I like to think a lot about. You know, you have to be flexible, because the music industry is very nuanced, it's a challenging one to be in, it's really rewarding, it's very beautiful, but it's not easy, you know, and it's ever evolving. So I think anything you can do to stay updated, to stay nimble, to really form a community as well, or be a part of one, like really try to be involved in one. That's so vital. You know, if you don't have a community, what do you got, you know, in music? That's tough. Word of mouth is so important to, you know, do your work well, don't be late with anything. And here I am being 10 minutes late to the interview. But no, like in general, like just like really, you know, do what you say you're gonna do. I think that's so important, and something that I know it sounds so silly, but you just have to deliver on your
Yeah.
promises, and I think that goes a long way, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then because my project is about a lot of women and
Mm,
female empowerment, I'd love you
sure.
to um have you faced any stereotypes or biases as a female musician, or how do you challenge, or maybe even in both your fields, right? How do you challenge or overcome them?
Right. Well, to be totally honest, for example, just like from the very beginning, like being a female drummer, I didn't think anything of it until other people were like, "Oh, there aren't that many female drummers." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, I guess you're right." And then I kind of like did a mental, like Rolodex of like my favorite drummers, and I'm like, yeah, because they're all men. Oh, interesting. But I didn't really think anything of it. Maybe I was too young also to like make anything of it. I was just like, okay, cool, well, whatever, I'm just gonna keep doing it. And I don't think I ever had any kind of discourage. Like, of course, people would be like, oh, a female drummer, but I feel like that's where it would end. It wouldn't be like, oh, any kind of vibe. Or at least if it did, I feel like I just blocked it if there was anything. Because at the end of the day, that's not about you, it's about the other person, All to say, I didn't feel prejudiced. I think my challenges with confidence may have to do with the fact that I'm a woman. I have no idea. I don't know if I was a man, I would feel differently about what I do. Because in writing too, I mean, there aren't that many, big band women leaders. I mean, there are now more, of course, Maria being like the prime example. Our contemporaries like Ji Lee is doing incredible work. I'm like so inspired by her. She's amazing. And others, of course. But yeah, I guess I've chosen fields that are more male dominated as well. I mean, in the music industry, I understand it's mostly male dominated anyway, but I feel like the two things that I've chosen to do, there's not a lot of female presence there. Not a lot of negative feedback or challenges. I mean, sure, I think I've had unsavory encounters with some male counterparts, at certain points, both in school and out. But, you just have to deal with it. I mean, it sucks, but, it's like not pleasant, when you're trying to be put in a position, where you feel uncomfortable but I think that doesn't really answer your question. I don't think, fortunately, that I felt discouraged or questioned by it. Or like I said, if I have, I've chosen to not give too much weight to it. I'm like, you know what? I'm just a person. I happen to be a female. I never want to be chosen to do something because I'm a female. I understand that we need more representation, so I'm not blind to it, of course. But on a very deep personal level, if I'm being asked to do something, I want it to be because of the work that I produce, not because of the gender that I am, you know? So I try to think about it in that way, but I'm definitely not blind to, to the struggles that many women face. I think I've just been very fortunate to have actually male mentors that were just awesome, and that were just like so encouraging and positive, and that didn't make it a thing, that I was a female. I think that's more than anything, that's it. They didn't make me feel weird or outside because I'm a woman. They were just like, cool, do your thing. They like treated me the same. And that's honestly what I want. I just want to be treated the same, not more nor less. I'm just a person.
Yeah, I remember you telling about your drum teacher who is now all into yoga, right? He's like almost enlightened. He's the most Zen person in the
Yes,
world. Such a great
yes.
mentor. What's his
Yeah,
name
he's
again?
Ian Froman. We're such great friends
Right.
now. And yeah, I started to study with him. I think it was my fourth semester at Berklee, I didn't want to play swing, even though I was studying jazz, and I felt like, oh boy, this is I'm at Berklee. I'm gonna get canceled by the Berklee police. I don't want to play swing. And talking about mirrors and how other people perceive you, right? I was playing, and I think 3 or 4 people were like, "Man, you sound like you should study with this guy." Like totally independently. I'm like, cool. So I listened. And I went to see him, and he was just like this like tough guy, dressed in black, you know. And he's like, "So, you want to study with me?" And I'm like, "I don't know. People tell me that I should." You know. And he's like, "Okay, cool." And we like really hit it off, and I think we had a good like personal connection. And he was like, "All right, be here next Tuesday at like whatever 7. I'll give you half an hour." You know. And that's how we started. And he was so tough, not on me, but on my playing, which I think is a very important distinction. You know, he would be really critical of the playing whenever I was like not on it, and he could just totally see it, you know. And for me, because I never felt like he was attacking me as a person, like, "Oh well, you suck," he would be like, "No, that sucked." What was that, you know? And I'm like, "Yeah, you know, you're right." So I think there was that separation. There was always that mutual respect of like, we're just two people, we're just living, you know, and I'm coming here for instruction, and that's what it was. And I think that respect carried me a long way. And now we're friends. I see him whenever I can. You know, I just went to see him play at Lunatico the other night. But yeah, then he found yoga, and he was like totally enlightened. He was like, "I'm still," you can blurt this out. He was like, "I'm still an asshole, but now I teach yoga." I'm like, okay. You know. So yeah, he's great. Like he's someone that like never made me feel like, "Oh, you're a woman, so you can't play, or you're weak, or whatever." You know, like all these like potential stereotypes. That was just like one more, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, it's great.
Last question. How do you balance like work and life? Do you have hobbies?
Oh, that is a really good one. I don't think I have hobbies, and I think I have to find a hobby. I've been thinking about ceramic.
I think cats are your hobby.
Well, yes, I have become a crazy cat lady. Maybe I have always been a crazy cat lady, and it's just like finally coming to fruition. I don't know.
How many cats do you have?
3.
Okay.
They're all wonderful and perfect. I mean, I love to read. I guess you would call it a hobby. Like I really read as much as I can. I love fiction. I love nonfiction too, but that's something I try to do. You know, I try to work out. Again, maybe a hobby, maybe not, just like health generally. But yeah, other than that, I'm just working and trying to write and trying to like, you know, keep a healthy relationship with, you know, my partner and my family, my friends. And you know, that seems like a lot of times. Not to
Yeah.
complain, you know, but I don't, somebody told me recently it's, you know, it's balancing, you know, it's not balance, and you have to create your balance. You don't find it, you know.
Yes.
I've thought a lot about lately about just sustainability. You know, I talked to you earlier about how I kind of, my preference is to block out big chunks of time for things, you know, because it feels good, it feels expensive, like, okay, cool, I have like this swath of time that I can like write in. But the reality is that my life is not like that, you know. I have to find ways to maybe do 1 hour, you know, every day, but like keep consistency with it. And like I will build that way instead of like waiting, you know, for big chunks of time to do stuff. Like I'm realizing more and more like that's, at least at this stage of my life, is not how it is, because my life is just kind of hectic how it is right now, you know, with like work and taking care of like a bunch of artists. It's constant, you know, and like it's, yeah, 9 to 5, but like not really, you know. Um, so it's definitely, it's a work in progress, but I think that it will always be a work in progress. I think I've given up on the idea that I will figure it out completely one day. And I'm fine with that. It's kind of a nice notion to be like, you know what? guess I'm not going to be totally in control, you know? Gotta leave room for other stuff. But yeah, gotta find a hobby, I think. That'd be good for my brain. Do you have
Yeah,
any suggestions? Well, you do lots of things.
I guess. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You're super creative. You knit. You got into like Japanese
Sewing,
dyeing
yeah,
technique,
yeah,
sewing,
indigo dye, and
you
yeah,
know?
there, yeah, I do a lot of crafty stuff.
Yeah, you're a very creative and crafty person. That's actually
Yeah,
totally from your book. Yeah. So
let's do crafty
balancing,
stuff
like you
together
say.
then.
I know,
Well,
right?
you made this.
Oh, I did.
Yeah, you made a Vivi the bunny. I got it here.
I did. My mother-in-law was like, "You're gonna needle felt for one day." I'm like, "Yes." No, she didn't say it like that. She encouraged me to do it, and I gladly took her olive
The
branch.
Easter project. Huh?
The Easter project, yeah. Like one
That's
day
so
of break
funny.
in between writing my record. That's what I did.
Perfect. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for being in my podcast. I had a
Oh, thank
blast. I
you.
hope
Me
everybody
too.
will check out your music that is released and is also gonna be released.
Yeah.
We'll put all the links in the descriptions. And yeah,
Thanks for having me and for making me a part of your amazing project too. Very
yes.
grateful.
As I conclude this episode of ViviTalks, I want to express my sincere gratitude for joining me in this musical journey. I hope you enjoyed exploring the stories and experiences of the incredible female musicians on my album. To stay updated on our latest episodes, subscribe to ViviTalks on your favorite podcast platform. Connect with me on social media through Vivircha, and please check out my album Typuhthâng, a musical exchange featuring 100 female musicians to empower female cacao farmers of Virunga State Park in Congo. It's about more than just music. It's about making a positive impact in the world. Your support is part of that journey, so thank you once again for tuning in. Until next time, keep celebrating the power of music, and let's continue to amplify the voices of remarkable women in the industry. Stay inspired, stay empowered, and keep the music flowing. With love and gratitude. Till soon.